We're on Machshirin Perak Vav Mishnah Bet, second Mishnah, the 6th chapter of Masechet Machshirin. We're talking about bringing things up to the roof. Hama'alet agudot. If you bring the agudot are bundles of yerek, vegetables or vegetation, produce. Veta ketziot. Ketziot is cuttings, but that's not what it means here. We'll see in a second what it means. Veta shum, or the garlic. Lagag b'shish yamtinu. You bring all these things up to the roof. Shi yamtinu. Yamtinu means to wait. We'll see in a second what the Bartuna says it means. What are ketziot? Kochina te'enim b'machteshet. You crush the figs in a machteshet, in a crusher. V'osim oto ke'en kikarot. They make them like big cakes. V'hem nikreim ketziot. Those are the ketziot. So remember, one of the things we learned in many Mishnayot is they would make igulei dveila. Dveila are dried figs, right? They were the rounds of figs. So I think what it really means, you take these things up. Bishush yamtinu. Bartuna says yamtinu is lichluch. You make them dirty. Okay, what it means is when you want to dry things out, let's say for like a cheese, for example, that has to ferment, you want a cake, what does it mean to be dirty? I think it means to crust on the outside, because that will allow it to be preserved over time. Otherwise, it might get rotten, or I guess it was subject to infestation. So you bring these things up to the roof so that you want to wait, you want the yamtinu, you want to wait, you want the dust to cake them. Okay, he says the Mishnah, and then they get wet, of course. Ena mechiyutan. That's not chiyutan, because of course you didn't want them to get wet. You wanted them to get to encrust. Okay, and because that's not your intention. And your non-intention is not to get wet. That's what I just said. Kol ha'agudot shel beit hashvakim. Mishnah says when you go to the beit hashvakim, shuk, all the agudot, all the bundles of produce are tmeim. Rabbi Yehuda mitaher belachim. Everybody says that if they're lachim, doesn't mean wet. It means fresh. Fresh produce is okay, but non-fresh produce is not okay. Okay, and we'll see Rabbi Meir for a second, then we'll see what the machloket is about. Rabbi Meir says, why do we think they're tamei? Because of spit. What in the world is going on? Says the Bar Tunura. Okay, kol agudot, all bundles of yerek. If you go to the shuk, you go to buy stuff, they're tameim. Why? Because the sellers, they would sprinkle water on them to make them wetter, to make them look fresher. And of course, this actually is true. You go to the grocery store, they're always spraying them with water. Everybody touching them. So therefore, says the Tana Kama, right? All the agudot, all the bundles of the Beit Shvakim are Tmayim. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, lachim, if it's lach, not that it's wet, it's fresh. So remember, they didn't have refrigeration. It's not like you think you go to the grocery store, all the fresh produce. That's what they had. You had dried produce, you had dried goods. Rabbi Yehuda said, if it's fresh produce, then they didn't have to spritz it because it was fresh already. There's no reason to make it look better. It looked great. All the other stuff, they had already wet. Now, what is Rabbi Meir saying? Rabbi Meir says, wrong, Rabbi Yehuda. It's not they're worried about spritzing. What they say, because mashkei apeh, says the Bar Tunura, even though, no, they didn't spritz them water when they were lachim, wet or fresh. You got a nice, you have an apple, and it was like a little dirty. Yeah, so I'm not going to do this because somebody in my family might want to eat this. They would lick it. You know what I'm saying? Get the spit off it. Of course, today we would say that's gross, but they didn't hold of germs. I guess they didn't know that spit was germs or whatever. And therefore, they would just get there, get a little good spit on it. And that's how it was machshir lekabel tuma. So the Rabbi says, well, no, the reason why all fruit in the store are tamei is not because they would sprinkle water on it. It's because they would lick them, basically. Which makes you think about when you find your time machine and go back and buy stuff in the shuk, I would wash the produce. So therefore, Rabbi Meir says, even if they're not lachim, they would still be tamei. Kol akmachim, all kemach, flours. Vaslatot, sold it as fine flours. So beit hashvakim that's sold in the shuk are tmeim. Okay, and they are tamei because they had to be wet in order for them to be said. In order for them, they soak them. Before they grind them, because that allows for the grinding process. Therefore, bechezkat tuma, because we can't assume that it was done b'tahara. Okay, hachilka v'atargis v'atizgi tmeim b'chol makom. Chilka. Let's look at the Bartuna for a second. Chita ktusha, crushed. It's kind of bulgur wheat, like crushed wheat, half crushed wheat. Targis, it's into 3. Tisli shenachalago le'arba. It's like different levels of crush. they are always Tme'im because they had to sprinkle water on them. Interestingly, what the Mishnah is doing is saying that if somebody wanted to buy things al Taharat HaKodesh, basically what it's saying is you couldn't buy it from the shuk. You had to buy it from a special store where you knew the Baal Habayit, whoever it was selling stuff al Taharat HaKodesh, and people couldn't touch the stuff. It's essentially saying that you have to assume it's tameh, and if you wanted to make sure you're tahor, you can't buy stuff in the regular store. Very, very, very similar to what happens today. We'll stop here. Dedicate our learning to memory of my father, Rab Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Make it a great day, everybody.